Welcome to Geraldine's Super Secret Author Vlog. So it's been a few weeks. I had my first vaccine, and I know at least 3 of us women who it kind of affected our hormones in unusual ways. And this is the first shot. And for almost the entire 2 weeks after the first shot, we had a lot of sleepiness and some fatigue and total lack of motivation. It was odd because I sometimes sleep more in the dead of winter, but this is now spring and this is usually when I'm getting a surge of energy. So I found it really strange to be so sleepy and to be sleeping so much and like taking a couple naps a day. I work from home, so sometimes I keep weird hours. But I found myself like taking 1 to 2 naps a day and then still totally conking out at like 9 or 9:30 at night and sleeping all night long. It was strange. And the total lack of motivation was unusual too. But I got past that. The 3rd week I felt back to normal, and now today is Saturday. I'm going back to get my 2nd shot. And I've heard a lot of people having more trouble with the 2nd shot, but I'm hoping it'll be okay. It was just a good thing that I scheduled out several of my YouTube videos ahead of time. I just happened to have this big surge of energy before my first shot. I got a whole bunch of videos done and scheduled ahead of time, and that was a lifesaver because then all of a sudden I had no motivation for 2 weeks, and so I was glad that that was all set up. So today I'm going to talk about this sewing project I've been wanting to do for years, like several years, and I just never have done it. So I finally decided to do it. I have this book from the 60s. It's a vintage book, and it's all about how to make custom master patterns to fit your body, and then you use those to like make adjustments to any other patterns so that everything is exactly custom tailored to your measurements and your size. And this is called a sloper when you make a master pattern. So this book has all these detailed instructions on how to make slopers. And somebody gave this to me years ago, and I read it and it was so interesting to me. And not only that, but then you can use the slopers to design your own clothes. So you can take like a basic, say, blouse sloper, and you could make a suit jacket out of it, or a shirt dress, or a blouse with different kinds of sleeves. You know, there's just like a lot of possibilities. And so I just thought that would be an interesting thing to learn, to custom make my own design clothes, which I've always kind of wanted to do. My main obstacle is that I don't love sewing all that much. I like getting the things I get from sewing, like making my medieval clothes, or, you know, making things for the house. So that motivates me to then sew, but sometimes sewing aggravates me. It's usually when the machine's doing something wrong, or it frustrates me, and then I don't sew for 6 months, you know. So I'm not sure if this is the best hobby for me to continue pursuing, but I finally got around to start working on the sloper patterns. And the first one, they suggest you start with the easiest pattern and work your way up. And so the first easiest pattern to do is this A-line dress. And, you know, this book is back from the 60s or something. And so they actually mention, I think it's like 5 main patterns to use to make your slopers. And so one is an A-line dress, and then like a basic pattern for a blouse, and a basic pattern for just basic pants, and one for a basic skirt. And then you make your sloper from these. And, you know, back in the 60s, there were a lot more like cotton fabrics used. Like now we have a lot more knit fabrics, I think, than they had back then. I think they were starting into that with the polyesters, but they were still sewing a lot with cotton fabrics that have no stretch. And so there's a lot of darts and different things. And I find that interesting. But I did happen to have some fabrics from the thrift store that I've been wanting to make into something because it's really nice fabric, but they're knits. So I don't know how it's going to go. So I started this a while ago, working on my sloper pattern step by step, and you'll see that in the video. There are times when I can work on something slowly, step by step, and very detailed, and then other times where I just figure out shortcuts and, you know, skip corners. and you know, keep in mind that when I learned to sew, it was in the SCA. I learned to sew without using patterns. I learned to sew medieval gowns by studying archaeological, like a bog dress that was found in a bog, and then they deconstructed it, and by studying medieval paintings and medieval statues, and then like figuring it out and, you know, doing research, and not by using patterns. And so this is a little bit new to me, using patterns and having to follow all these meticulous step-by-step things, you know. I was working on the sloper, doing really well, but I do have to have really good energy to sew because it tends to aggravate me sometimes. And so if I'm tired at all or already grumpy, I don't even bother with it. You know, I actually prefer hand sewing and hand knitting and things like that because it's very calming and relaxing and slow. But again, usually with the sewing, it has to do with my machine's doing something and I don't know what, and it's frustrating me. But I started working on the sloper, and I was doing it step by step, and then I thought the fabric part of the sloper was going to be the master pattern. So I had that in my mind, and I thought I could get this done quickly and then get started on the dress. And then suddenly I realized that was just halfway through, and that then after making adjustments, I had to take the muslin version of the pattern and copy it over onto stiff paper to make the actual master sloper pattern. I don't know why, but for some reason, I just was like, I didn't want to do that. I had all this resistance come up. I thought I was almost done, and it turns out I was only halfway, and I then had to go through all this whole process of getting it onto stiff paper. I don't know why, but for some reason, I just didn't want to do that. I was like, I'm done with this. You know, this is enough time spending on a sloper. I want to actually get the dress done and like work on the dress. So I actually just stopped working on it for weeks, and then just started again recently. And I thought, you know what, I'll just do that paper part later when I'm ready. But for now, I want to get this dress done. It's taking too long. You know, I only have some certain amount of sewing energy, let's just say, and if something takes too long, it won't get done. So then even though I went through all that work to do the sloper pattern, I went back to the original tissue paper pattern for the A-line dress just to get going on my dress because I want results. I want to get it done and I want to be able to wear it. It's halfway through the spring season for my spring capsule closet, and I had several items I was supposed to sew to go in that capsule closet. At this rate, I'll be lucky if I get them done by the end of this capsule closet, and then maybe I'll incorporate them into summer's capsule closet. Because I also bought some linen and some special patterns for making classic linen pants and top and stuff. So I kind of wanted to learn to, you know, do some of that just by working with this pattern from this one store. I think it's fabricstore.com, fabric-store.com. They've got 100% linen, all different colors, and it's a natural medieval fabric. I love it. Anyway, so I finally just stopped working on the sloper pattern, which you'll see in this video. Started working the actual dress. I should have realized it was going to be a tricky day because it started off right away. I took my really sharp sewing scissors, went to cut my threads and cut my finger instead. It started bleeding a lot, and I've had to pretty much put fresh band-aids on it throughout every day because if I, you know, rub it against something wrong, it starts bleeding a whole lot. There's a little V mark on there where it was sliced, and I've never done that before, so it was really odd. And that was just the start of my sewing day. While I was working, my machine stopped working. The threads just started suddenly snapping for no reason every few seconds, even when I stitched really slowly. So I was forced to quit before I was done with the dress, and I could have gotten the dress done that Saturday if that hadn't happened. And I was so frustrated because this was my backup machine, and my other machine has been needing tuning, which is expensive, so I hadn't taken it in. I was using my backup machine, and now this one I was going to have to now come up with $150 to $200 to get my machine working again. And I've been trying to save for my camper van, and so it would have to come out of that. So that was very frustrating. And then my iPhone holder on the tripod broke while I was filming me working on the A-line dress. So you might see some strange filming because that broke partway through. And so then I had to just prop up my phone as best I could, and it kept falling over. So it felt like one thing after another going wrong all day long. It was very odd. It was just one of those days. And so then I was afraid to work on my knitting because something was going to break, you know. And so yeah, it was very strange. But I actually enjoyed getting back into sewing. I was enjoying the sewing itself. I was so happy. I was finally working on it, and the fabric is so gorgeous. So even though on one level it was a horrible, very bad day, you know, on another level, I really was enjoying the sewing, and I was appreciating the fact that I had the energy and was working on it. So hopefully I can get myself back going now. It turns out I took my machine, and it was some simple things. This backup machine is a new machine that was given to me, and I don't know it very well, so I'm still learning the ropes on it. And so it was just two simple little adjustments that I didn't realize, and then the machine was working just fine. I didn't have to spend any money, so I was very grateful for that. And I found a really great sewing machine repair shop and education center really close to my home. I never even knew they were there. They've been there for like over 50 years, and so it's great to find that connection. So I'm going to try to finish this A-line dress, and we'll see how that goes. Along with all the strange things happening when I started sewing, a couple days later, I got a chance to take my original sewing machine into the shop, and I thought, if I'm going to fix one, I'm going to fix my original one, because I've had it for 20-30 years. It's the one I'm used to. And you know, I had a mermaid business for a while, so all of our machines were over there, and then we ended up having to close the business. And so I had my original one in the case, and I'd used it for a while, and then like the timing got off, so I knew it needed tuning, and I just didn't want to spend $150 on it. So I finally took it in, got there, we removed it from the case, and that's when I noticed it was not my original machine. It had been given back to me from our shop as my original machine, and I had even used it a few times and never noticed it wasn't my original brother's sewing machine that I'd had for decades. That was a college graduation gift, you know, and that was so strange. And then I contacted my former seamstress. We're good friends. She doesn't have it. We have no idea what happened to my original sewing machine. Instead, it was replaced with this JCPenney machine that I guess is Singer, but it was broken. It was going to cost so much money to fix. He said it just wasn't worth it. So he ended up recycling that machine for me. But I do have my backup that my seamstress gave me when that one broke. This is a Baby Lock, which the repairman said is also a really good quality machine. I'm still getting used to it. It's not the one I've been sewing on for decades, you know, since I graduated college. So still getting used to this one, but that was just an odd thing. And I just don't know what happened to my original sewing machine that I loved so much, that I made all my medieval garb on and learned how to sew on it. All this stuff, I used it for decades, you know, and I didn't sew a lot, let's just say. I sew once in a while, not a whole lot, but still, I have no idea what happened to it. So now I'm getting used to a new machine, and I'm just happy to have a sewing machine. vintage ironing board.
And this is also from the 60s. I've never done pockets before, so pin this to that. We will sew it, see how it comes out.